Okay? So this is now Western Indians, and this is going to be uh, the cause and also the end. All right? So here we go with this. Now, the buffalo way of life ends. If you see this horrifying picture here, what are those? Those are buffalo skulls. Now, the buffalo was highly important to the Indians. They used everything. They used the skin for the teepees, and the blood and the bones, and all these things had a special meaning to them. Now, if their way of life ends, you have two choices. A, I can continue to fight these people, which I'm losing, and they're going to send more power. Or B, I'm going to have to become like them. All right? Congress will pass an act called the Dawes-Severity Act, shortly Dawes Act. Now, what we did in the Dawes Act is we made the Indians drop their culture and become like us. Now, the picture you have here is of the same boy. His name is Tom Torlino. And so Tom Torlino was picked up in the picture on the left in his Indian garb, and etc. Upon going through a famous school called the Carlisle School, which we'll talk about in a minute. He came out looking like that. Now you can see the long hair, which was a symbol of pride, and the bone necklace and the earrings all gone, and he looks like any other typical white American in the 1800s. So that was the purpose of the Dawes Act. The Dawes Act also essentially pushed them off their reservations. Why? We now wanted the reservation land to make more money. We're running out of space in the West. So that's where we're going to come into a conflict, okay? So here it is, the Carlisle School. Now the back picture, and it kind of overlapped, I'm sorry, is the Carlisle School. You have all these children meeting together in this meeting house. And if we could have a school motto of the Carlisle School, it's there. A famous person of this Carlisle School said, "Kill the Indian, save the man." In other words, kill the Indian out of them, make them not want to have to do the things they've done before, but we want them to be a man. What type of man? A white man like everyone else. Now, this angered the people very much, and so one woman, and she could be described as a muckraker, if you will, her name is Helen Hunt Jackson. Now, Helen Hunt Jackson wrote a book, and I guess the response to this book would be, as Outcast said, "I'm sorry, Miss Jackson." But Miss Jackson wrote a book called A Century of Dishonor, in which she talks about the classic plight of Native Americans, particularly the California Indians. Do we hear of the California Indians today? No, they're all gone. All gone. So, what happens next is we go through all these things, and we have different words we've kept around. Yosemite is a Californian word. California itself is a Californian word. And so the whole purpose was to make sure that people were being talked about the dangers of going white. Now, the Dawes Act, the Carlisle School, dropping this, it has a big name, and that is called assimilation. Assimilation is where you drop your culture and become like someone else. Now, where do we see assimilation today? We see it in high schools. A lot of, if you've ever known a student who maybe comes from another country, they're going to have to essentially drop their customs and traditions and become like everyone else. And so that is assimilation to an extent. That's maybe not a good thing. I mean, it depends on how you look at it, right? Now, famously, there's a guy named Frederick Jackson Turner. Frederick Jackson Turner gave us the Turner thesis. I'm sorry, it's not original. Now, a thesis is a statement, an overarching statement that you want to prove. So what did Turner intend to prove? He said, the frontier is closed. Stop moving west. Stay where you are. There's no more land. Now, this is important because people in the United States are beginning to look overseas. And there's something called imperialism. And we'll get into imperialism. It's coming, I promise, okay? We have to end up this whole Indian Wars. Now, the Native Americans, through a shaman, if you will, named Wolfaka, came up with an idea called the ghost dance. Now, the ghost dance is portrayed here in this picture. The ghost dance is where the Indians would actually dance to their ancestors with the belief that they would help them on the other side of life, in the afterlife, if you will, get their lands back. What it did is it really, really freaked out the white settlers. Yeah. So they decided they had to go, and they're going to round them up again. They're going to put them on reservations. But all this comes to a very, very bloody end, and that is at Wounded Knee. Now, Wounded Knee, you can see it there on the sign, was a massacre site, all right? All of these Indians are being herded into this reservation type thing because they're freaked out by the ghost dance and these things like that. Now, Sitting Bull is at Wounded Knee. What happens is Sitting Bull has a bodyguard named Catch the Bear. I don't know if they changed that to Caught the Bear once he actually did, or if he's continuing in the process of catching the bear. Anyway, back to this. The army people show up, Catch the Bear shoots a gun to basically warn them, and then when it's all said and done, all these Indians in Wounded Knee are dead. Now, this is the largest massacre in U.S. history. And some people go, the Orlando thing was a lot of people. Yes, that was a massacre. That was a lot of people. But Wounded Knee had about 180, maybe 200 people at this point. And so it's important to kind of put things in contextual and make sure we're factual with what we're going on. All right? Now, Wounded Knee did something very important, and that is it killed the period we call the Indian Wars. And so to go back, as we said before, as Chief Joseph said, I will fight no more forever. The Indians agree to basically assimilate into society. Now, some of them are allowed to stay on the reservations. Which one? The 5 civilized tribes. The rest of them kind of assimilated into culture. We don't bring up Indians again until about the 1920s, 1930s. FDR really does some things to kind of reverse these effects. But that was the West Indians.